Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling completely drained, as if someone had reached inside you and turned down the volume of your own confidence? We often speak about power as something held by leaders, billionaires, or figures of authority. But the most dangerous form of power is the one we surrender in our everyday interactions. It happens when a single critical comment from a coworker ruins your entire evening, or when the lack of approval from a family member makes you question a decision you were previously proud of. This is the psychological phenomenon of external validation dependency. It is a state where your emotional remote control is kept in the pockets of other people. You are essentially giving them the power to decide if you are worthy, if you are capable, and if you are allowed to be happy today. When you live this way, you aren't a sovereign individual. You are a leaf in the wind of public opinion, tossed around by the changing moods and biases of people who are just as confused and flawed as anyone else. The internal struggle is a constant, exhausting vigilance. You become a social chameleon, constantly adjusting your colors to match what you think others want to see, hoping that if you are perfect enough, they will finally grant you the permission to feel good about yourself. But this is a game you can never win. By giving others the power to define you, you lose the ability to define yourself. You are living in a house of mirrors where every reflection is distorted by someone else's expectations, insecurities, and hidden agendas. This dependency creates a hollow core, a feeling of being a representative of a person rather than a person. The weight of carrying everyone else's opinions is the reason you feel so tired, even when you haven't moved a muscle. To break this cycle and reclaim the throne of your own identity, we must look at the secret of the mirror and follow the journey of a man who thought he was shattered, only to realize he was looking at the wrong reflection. In a city known for its crystal and glass lived a young man named Julian who worked as a silversmith. Julian was incredibly skilled, but he lived in a state of perpetual emotional fragility. His city was unique, its walls were lined with polished surfaces, and its people were obsessed with the gaze. To the citizens of this place, your value was not determined by what you did, but by the reflected nod, a specific look of approval from the elite of the city. Julian spent his days crafting beautiful silver mirrors, but he never looked in them to see himself. Instead, he looked in them to see the faces of the people passing his shop. If a merchant scowled at his work, Julian would spend the night in tears, convinced his talent was a lie. If a noblewoman walked by without glancing at his display, he would throw away weeks of labor, believing it was worthless. Julian carried a small, handheld mirror in his pocket at all times. He used it like a compass, checking it every few minutes to see how the world was reacting to his presence. If the mirror reflected a crowd that looked bored, Julian felt invisible. If it reflected a single person sneering, Julian felt broken. His internal conflict was a jagged, painful thing. He wanted to create bold, experimental silverwork, sculptures that captured the wild motion of the sea. But he was too afraid. He stuck to traditional safe patterns that he knew the city elders liked. He was a master of his craft, yet he felt like a beggar, constantly holding out his hand for a crumb of praise. This repeated failure to honor his own vision led to a deep, gray stagnation. His workshop, once filled with the smell of ozone and the sound of creative fire, became a cold place of imitation. He was physically present, but his spirit was scattered across the city, resting in the minds of people who didn't even know his name. He was a man made of glass, waiting for someone to tell him he was solid. The turning point occurred on a day of the Great Reflection, a festival where the city's most influential critics would walk the streets to judge the local artisans, Julian had prepared a massive, ornate mirror frame, hoping it would finally earn him the golden nod. But as the head critic approached, a young child ran past and accidentally bumped the frame. It didn't break, but it tilted, reflecting the critic's own distorted, grumpy face from a bad angle. The critic, annoyed by his own reflection, scoffed and walked away without a word. The crowd followed suit, mirroring the critic's disdain. Julian felt as if he had been struck in the chest. He retreated into his shop, pulled out his handheld mirror, and saw a face so filled with shame that he couldn't bear to look. In a moment of total despair, he threw the small mirror against the stone floor. It shattered into 100 jagged pieces. "Is that how you think you look?" a voice asked from the shadows of the back room. Julian jumped. Sitting on a crate was an old man named Marcus, a retired smith who had long ago stopped participating in the city's festivals. Marcus was known as the Cloud Smith because he worked with matte, unpolished metals that didn't reflect anything at all. He held a piece of dark, unpolished iron in his hand, rubbing it with a coarse cloth. "I am a failure, Marcus," Julian sobbed, pointing at the shattered glass. "The city has seen me, and they have found nothing." Marcus stood up and walked to the pile of broken glass. He picked up a large, sharp shard and held it up to Julian's face. "Look at this piece, Julian. What do you see?" "I see a piece of me," Julian whispered, "but it's sharp and broken." Marcus tilted the shard. "No. You see a piece of the room. You see a piece of the floor. You see a piece of the shadows. A mirror has no identity of its own, Julian. Its only job is to show you what is in front of it. When you give someone power over you, you are making yourself into a mirror. You are trying to reflect their moods, their biases, and their flaws, and then you are blaming yourself when the image is ugly." Marcus dropped the shard and stepped on it, crushing it into dust. "You have spent your life trying to be a perfect reflection for a city of blind men. But a smith's job is not to reflect the world. It is to shape it." Marcus invited Julian to his own workshop, a simple stone building far from the polished center of the city. There were no mirrors here. The walls were rough and dark. "For the next season," Marcus said, "you will work only in the dark. You will not see your work until it is finished. You will have to feel the metal. You will have to listen to the hammer. You will have to know the silver is right because you feel the balance, not because someone tells you it looks good." The transformation was slow and agonizing. For the first few weeks, Julian felt lost. Without the reflected nod, he didn't know if he was doing a good job. He would reach for his pocket to find his handheld mirror, only to remember it was gone. He felt an intense, crawling anxiety, a psychological withdrawal from the drug of approval. He ruined several pieces, his hammer strikes too heavy or too hesitant. He felt like a man walking through a thick fog without a lantern. He cried out in frustration, wanting to go back to the city, wanting to hear just one person say he was still talented. "The metal doesn't care if you're crying," Marcus would say from the corner. "The metal only cares about the truth of your strike. Listen to the silver, Julian. Stop listening for the crowd." Gradually, Julian's other senses began to sharpen. Because he couldn't see the reflection of his work, he started to feel the vibration of the silver in his bones. He began to recognize the exact sound of a perfect weld. He discovered a deep, internal rhythm that he had never known existed. He stopped worrying about the gaze because there was no gaze in the darkness. He was alone with his craft, and in that solitude, he found a solid, unshakable center. He realized that the power the city held over him was a hallucination he had participated in. They didn't have power. He had just been holding his remote control out to them, begging them to press the buttons. The realization moment came when he was working on a small silver bowl. He was shaping the rim, and for the first time, he didn't wonder what the merchants would think of the curve. He simply knew the curve was right because it followed the natural flow of the metal. He felt a surge of cold, clean strength. He wasn't a mirror anymore. He was a smith. He was the one doing the shaping. After months in the dark, Marcus finally opened the shutters. The sunlight flooded the workshop, hitting the pieces Julian had created. They weren't like the traditional polished works of the city. They were raw, textured, and vibrantly alive. They captured the movement of the wind and the honesty of the earth. Julian looked at his hands. They were scarred and soot-stained, but they were steady. He looked at his work and felt a quiet, profound pride. He didn't need to ask Marcus if it was good. He knew it was true. Julian returned to the city, but he didn't go back to his old shop. He opened a small stall in the corner of the marketplace. He didn't put up any mirrors. He didn't wear fine clothes to impress the critics. He simply sat and worked. When the head critic eventually came by and looked at Julian's new work with a confused, slightly mocking expression, Julian didn't flinch. He didn't reach for a handheld mirror. He simply nodded politely and continued his work. The critic's scoff had no more power over him than a distant breeze. Visible change began to manifest in the city. A few people, tired of the constant performance and the shifting mirrors, were drawn to the honesty of Julian's work. They felt a strength in the unpolished silver that they couldn't find in the city's crystal halls. Julian became a different kind of legend, the man who couldn't be broken because he wasn't trying to reflect anyone. He had discovered the mirror's secret, that the only reflection that matters is the one you see when you stop looking for yourself in the eyes of others. He was no longer a piece of glass. He was the hammer and the flame, and the power remained exactly where it belonged, in his own steady hands. The moral of this story is that your self-worth is a sovereign territory that you must never cede to the control of others. When you prioritize external validation, you are essentially outsourcing your identity to a world that is often inconsistent, biased, and distracted. In psychology, internal locus of control is the foundation of resilience. It is the understanding that while you cannot control the opinions of others, you have absolute authority over your own reactions and your own standards. Discipline your mind to stop acting as a mirror for the world's expectations. Consistency in your own values is far more powerful than the temporary high of a stranger's approval. Every time you seek a reflected nod, you are handing over a piece of your strength. Reclaim that power by focusing on the truth of your strike, the quality of your actions, and the integrity of your character. Let the world think what it will. Your job is not to be a perfect reflection, but to be a solid reality. The only person who needs to approve of your life is the one who has to live it. Stop looking in the handheld mirrors of social opinion and start trusting the weight of your own metal.